comment at the comments and concerns section of our agenda this evening. We'd just like to ask that you pick up a comment card out in the foyer area and fill it out to myself or Mr. Musgrove, and we'll consider it at that time on the agenda. I'd like to welcome everyone again here this evening. The date is November 3rd, 2015. The time is 6 p.m. I've asked Commissioner Fleming to lead us in the invocation and the pledge. Please rise.
Let us pray. Our Father and our God, our Maker and our Creator, we come today thanking you for all your blessings. Thank you for being with us all during the day, keeping us safe from all hurt, harm, and dangers. We pray, God, that you bless us this day. Watch over and be with us and help us today. Father, we need your strength, your wisdom, your knowledge, and your understanding. Bless us in our meeting today. Help us to take care of the county business as you see fit. Bless those that are overseas. Bless our leaders that are in charge. Look over our county. Father, we need you and we love you. We thank you. This we ask in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Fleming. Again, we'd like to thank everyone for taking part in the local government today. Please silence your cell phones, and board members turn off your vibration as well according to the microphones. We'll pick it up. Moving into our agenda this evening, item number 1, approval of minutes of the October 20th, 2015 regularly scheduled board meeting of the County Commissioners. Gentlemen, are there any changes or corrections that need to be made to these minutes?
Had none, Mr. Chairman. I'll offer a motion of approval.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Wainwright, seconded by Commissioner Gamble. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Moving into the consent agenda, are there any items that any commissioner would like pulled for individual consideration? Hearing none, I need a motion for approval of items 2 through 9.
So moved.
A motion made by Commissioner Wainwright, seconded by Commissioner Sessions. Is there any further discussion?
Boy, that was quick.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Moving into the Constitutional Offices item section, there were none reported or asked to be added to the agenda, but if there's any constitutional officer that would like to address the board at this time, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll move into the proclamations and presentations area of our agenda. Item number 10, adoption of resolution proclaiming November 17th, 2015 as Children's Grief Awareness Day, and also proclaiming November 2015 as Hospice Month in Suwannee County. We'll give our attention to Larry Geiger, and I guess he is with the Hospice of Citrus and the Nature Coast. Is that correct? Thank you. Welcome. Please come to the podium.
And I think you'll read the proclamation at this time.
We can. The proclamation declaring November 17, 2015 as Children's Grief Awareness Day in Suwannee County. Whereas children who have a loved one die, especially a close family member, experience intense inner turmoil. And whereas every school district has students who have experienced personal loss, and there are more grieving children than most of us realize. And whereas the Florida legislature resolved on April 7, 2011 to observe Children's Grief Awareness Day in Florida annually on the Thursday before Thanksgiving, and whereas Children's Grief Awareness Day provides an opportunity for all of us to raise awareness of the painful impact that the death of a loved one has in the life of a child, and an opportunity for all of us to recognize and support the millions of grieving children across the nation, the thousands of grieving children right in our own communities, and the grieving children we know and see in our daily lives. And whereas parental grief is boundless and touches every aspect of a parent's being, and whereas Harry's Kids Pediatric Services provides specialized services to children and teens with life-threatening illnesses and offers grief support and therapeutic camps for young people and their loved ones who have experienced a loss. And whereas the Commissioners applaud the work currently being accomplished and support grieving children on their journey toward hope after a loved one dies. Now, therefore, the Suwannee County Board of County Commissioners does hereby designate November 17, 2015 as Children's Grief Awareness Day in Suwannee County, Florida. And should this board decide, it will be passed and adopted on this day of November 2015.
And I believe there's one more proclamation, or is that still combined?
No, I'm sure that
Awareness.
there's another one here declaring Hospice Month in Suwannee County. Whereas Hospice of Citrus and the Nature Coast staff and volunteers provide a special kind of caring for those with a life-limiting illness in North Central Florida. And whereas Hospice of Citrus and the Nature Coast is Joint Commission approved and helped meet the medical, emotional, social, and spiritual needs of adults and children throughout North Florida last year. And whereas Florida hospices continue their focus on the family and those close to the patient, serving hundreds of thousands of Florida citizens with bereavement and caregiving assistance. And whereas Florida hospices partnered with Children's Medical Services and Medicaid to develop and provide Partners in Care Together for Kids program, the first publicly funded program that provides pediatric palliative care support services for children with potentially life-threatening illnesses. And whereas hospices in Florida recognize that our nation's veterans often have unique end-of-life needs and celebrate the heroic work of our veterans who have sacrificed much to guarantee our freedoms and quality of life. And whereas in honor of hospice caregivers, volunteers, and staff, the month of November is recognized nationally as Hospice Month in Suwannee County. Now, therefore, the Suwannee County Board of County Commissioners does hereby proclaim the month of November 2015 Hospice Month in Suwannee County, Florida.
Thank you very much. The month of November of every year is set aside nationally for all hospices to be recognized for their work that is done, providing care and support for the dying individual and their family is a very, very difficult job. We don't consider it as a job. We consider it as a service, as something that we love and enjoy. Not everyone can do this type of work, but we appreciate Suwannee County for allowing us to come into your service area. We have a 12-county service area that we provide support and care for those that are dying and also their families. We express our appreciation and thank you very much once more for allowing us to come and accept this proclamation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Geiger.
Now, I'm wondering, could I pardon the commissioners for a quick photograph?
Sure, that would not be a problem. Can you give us a few minutes, though, and just hang around, and then we'll do a break, and we'll do the photograph at that time. Are there any questions from Mr. Geiger or any comments by board members on either of these issues? Hearing none, we'll need two motions. One for the proclamation declaring November 17, 2015 as Children's Grief Awareness Day in Suwannee County. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Wainwright, seconded by Commissioner Gamble. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The second resolution would be declaring Hospice Month in Suwannee County.
So moved.
We have a motion made by Commissioner Sessions. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Fleming. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. After the proclamations and presentation section of our agenda, we have time-specific items. There was none noted, but there was one item that was not included on the agenda but was properly advertised. Maybe at this time, Mr. Harris, you could comment on that.
Mr. Chairman, what about item 11?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Let's go to number 11, adoption of resolution proclaiming November 13th, 2015 as World Pancreatic Cancer Day in Suwannee County. There is no one here, representative here to address this issue. If there's any commissioners that has anything they want to say, they can say at this time, or I will entertain a motion for this adoption of proclaiming World Pancreatic Day in Suwannee County.
I'll move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Commissioner Wainwright. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Sessions. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. I thought number 10 and 11 were the two things we did, but sorry about that. Time-specific items, there were none included on the agenda, but there is one time-specific item that was advertised and that we must address because of this. Mr. Harris, would you like to address this?
I'll just inform Those that may not have seen it in the newspaper, this public hearing was properly advertised in the newspaper. It was ad number 943576, advertised in the Suwannee Democrat, October 28, 2015, for the purposes of considering the second of two public hearings that are required for our grant application with Florida Small Cities Community Development Block Grant for economic development. And this is actually associated with the funding that we are requesting for the railroad spur at the Catalyst site. And Mr. Fox or someone representing his company will be here at the appropriate time to discuss that
All right.
in the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. So at this time, in order to facilitate the picture request, we'll take a brief break here for 10 minutes. We'll come back at, or let's say 5 minutes, 6:16 p.m. We'll be in recess. Back to order. We'll move into, let's see, the staff reports. We've got a few minutes here until the time-specific item comes up, so we'll move into staff reports. If you're following along on your agenda, item number 12A is we'll hear from Catherine Allen, Extension Office Director. Welcome up, Mrs. Allen.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Just wanted to let you know we finished our 2015 Master Gardener Volunteer class. They all passed, woohoo! And what this means is this first year they're required in order to be considered a certified Master Gardener, they have to give 75 hours of service back to the community. So after the first year, then it goes down to 35, but that first year, it's pretty intense. So if you have any projects that you'd like them to participate in, let me
County
know.
building in Branford.
They're going to be having a graduation ceremony on November 18th at Heritage Park and Gardens. So
Do they come with a tractor and a set of hairs?
I wish. We did finish our fall canning classes, so I wanted to give a shout out to the Fair Association because they let us use that kitchen to be able to do that. So thanks for that. Through our FMP grant, we've been going to a lot of the parent nights doing educational seminars for the parents as they go to the different schools. So tonight they were down in Branford, and they were showing them how things that are healthy can still taste good. We did finish, we're lucky to have worked with the Chamber for the Leadership Suwannee classes that they have going on. We were part of the Ag section, and so we set up a tour, so we got to go see Townsend Brothers. And for those of you who don't know, they were originally tomato farmers, but back about 5 years ago with that scare with the salmonella, it wasn't actually the tomatoes, it was the jalapeno peppers, but it was enough of a scare and caused enough commotion that they transitioned into sweet potatoes. And I don't know if you know, but the packing house is in the old tobacco barns down by the school board, and they ship not just here locally, but also to London, to the UK, to France, to Australia. And if you've ever gone to Texas Roadhouse, you'll know that the sweet potatoes that you get, guess what? They came from here. Or the ones that are shrink wrapped that you get in the store that are they call them microwavable sweet potatoes. Guess what? Those are our Townsend Brothers. And so it's things like that about our own community that we help to highlight. Then we went to Hoover Farms, which is a certified organic farm. There are people who call themselves organic, but this is a certified organic farm. And that does make a big difference, and we appreciate, again, the fact that they were willing to have us come out and show us around. Then we went to Shenandoah, and for those of you who don't know, that dairy is a huge dairy, and they are in the process of expanding. So they're getting ready to add on to their milking parlors, and what they have. If you've never been out there, I highly encourage you to go out there. It's pretty amazing, and to think that they're going to double their capacity is pretty amazing, and it's right here in our backyard. We ended up that tour at the Suwannee Valley Ag Extension Center and talked about the projects, the research projects that we have going on. In our little neck of the woods, we're involved in over $31 million worth of research out at that little research center. So not all of it goes to that research center, but those projects where they're granted that money, we're involved in the research with those. The pumpkin patch opened today out at the Suwannee Valley Ag Extension Center. So this is where we have schools, children coming in from not only Suwannee County, but the surrounding counties, so that they learn a little bit about where their food comes from. So we talk about pumpkins, and they get to go in the pumpkin patch and pick a pumpkin. They also go through the sorghum maze, and this year, the third commodity that we're highlighting is sesame. So they're going to check it out, and we have kind of a Sesame Street theme out there. So if you haven't been out there, we also invite you to come and check it out. The Watermelon Institute will be in Gainesville on December 1st. So that is a statewide effort that we participate with. We've got pesticide classes coming up in December. The hay bales are being judged on Friday for the 4-H clubs. So if you haven't stepped by to see them, you might want to come by on Friday because they'll all be completed by then. Also, I had mentioned before that I had been asked, or we in Florida had been asked to participate in some rural concerns gathering. And Live Oak was selected as one of the communities where we asked citizens for their input. This was through the Kettering Foundation, which is a research foundation that puts out issue guides to help with public engagement and democracy. And we are going to be included in the issues guide for rural concerns. So I've been participating with that. And last but not least, just wanted to remind you all that the raid on the Suwannee is coming up, not this weekend, but next weekend. Education Day is Friday the 13th. So, but we have lots of kids coming out. Everybody is welcome. If they're a student, they can come out for free that day and get to mix it up with the reenactors. And we also have General Edmund Kirby Smith, who will be speaking that day. So if you want to bring a bag lunch and come out for your lunchtime and listen to him. Also want to give a shout out here to Eric, who is participating in that week of events that are going on, along with the Veterans Parade and other things. So, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Allen. All right, we have a few more minutes here before 6:30, so we'll give our attention now and welcome up Mrs. Betty Lawrence, Director of Libraries.
Good evening, Commissioners, community. Thank you for the opportunity to come and share a little bit about the library. I'd like to start off by reminding everyone that we do have a display out in the lobby. My staff has put together a display giving you an idea of some of the things that we've done and some of the things that we will be doing in the future. So please take a look at that. Remind everyone that our website is also a good source to find out things that's going on at the library. I think that since my last report, I did not talk to you about summer reading, but we had a very successful summer reading program with the children alone. We had 8,883 children to register in that program. And that's a couple of months during the summer, so that was really good for us. The adult summer reading program is picking up well also. I especially want to thank the board and the Friends of the Library for your support in our Staff Development Day. This year, we focused on library security. It was very successful. Had the opportunity to invite an author in who wrote a book called The Black Belt Librarian. He is the foremost authority on library security in these United States, Warren Graham. We got a really good deal, and he came in, and the staff was very grateful, very thankful that we had the opportunity to have him come and talk to us about that. So thank you for that. Also would like to invite those of you who, we have about 600-700 people that we email the newsletter out each month to, and maybe a lot of you don't know it, but all you need to do is call, let us know that you'd like to receive the monthly newsletter, and we'll add you to the email list. That's one way also that you'll get a lot of information with regards to what's going on in the library. If you have any questions for me, I'll be more than glad to try and answer those. Otherwise, I think we got enough different resources and places for you to go to get information regarding the library.
Thank you, Mrs. Lawrence. Are there any questions of the board? Hearing none, thank you.
Thank you.
See you
Good
next time. Now we'll welcome up Greg Scott, Parks and Recreation Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commission, glad to be here tonight. Just give you a brief update on things. Football wrapped up last week. We got basketball started this week, and we got soccer registrations started last week also. So that is really not a slow time, so it's busy as always. But I didn't bring the numbers, but they look like about the same as in the past several years. Been involved with different community events, probably about 12 or 13 community events in the past couple of months, from downtown, the movie Downtown Fridays with the city and some other things. So got the river project, the spring project at Charles Spring has been completed. We'll be starting this month with the spring project in Little River Springs, and it's nice that the river is down a little bit right now, so we can maybe get that knocked out and get it done. Working on the grants, finalizing all the paperwork on those. Have been working on the FERDAP grants, and at the airport, we've got the stormwater master plan we're working on, and we'll be following up later with the actually work on the stormwater plan. Still working on the maintenance building also, that was a DOT grant, and also the EAA, the Experimental Aircraft Association out at the airport, painted what they call a compass rose on one of the taxiways or the aprons, and so that they can use it for calibration of their compasses. But they did a real nice job of that, all done with volunteers, and went out there to watch them for a while. And most amazing thing I've ever seen was all the volunteers were working. It was sometimes you get a lot of supervisors that come and volunteer also, but I was the only one that was watching. But it worked out real well. But I was intrigued by that. But a good group of folks that want to do more, and trying to look at a day they can do it. We can do an activity out at the airport, fly in or whatever, so we can have more activities out there. So anyway, that's what's going on in a nutshell. Any questions that you may have, be glad to answer for you.
I have one question. Out of your baseball, football, basketball, and the soccer, which you get the most production out of?
Soccer is our biggest, and then followed by baseball, softball, because you got boys, you got baseball, t-ball, girls softball all combined. So soccer is the biggest, over 330-something kids, and baseball, softball is right behind that, about 300, roughly. Basketball is the smallest, about 50 kids involved with that, but that's just as important to them as the bigger numbers are. So
I attended some of the football games last week, week before, and I saw quite a number of kids out there, and I thought maybe that was one of the biggest ones.
Actually, football is one of our smaller ones. So it's I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but probably with girls cheerleading, probably around close to 200 in that. So, but they seem to have a good time, and I was about to say my phone hadn't rang much from the parents, so I shouldn't say that out loud because it will skyrocket if I do. So I won't say that. But, anyway, any other questions? Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. All right, let's welcome up, let's do one more, Chief Summers, Public Safety Director.
Commissioners, Chairman. First, I'd like to thank the board and Mr. Harris for getting 80th Terrace paved. That is amazing. Didn't realize how good that road could be. So that's been nice. They got it paved today, got lines on it, so I think we're back in business out there. Let you know, we just got done with the Halloween event out at Spirit of the Suwannee Park. Interesting but exciting event, I must say. I think we saw somewhere around 23,000 people at that event, so the park's saying that's one of their biggest events that they've had. Remind you that the park pays for all fire and EMS services for that. It was not a reduction of county services. That was all, added services provided to the park, so you didn't see a delay in 911 services. For the month of October, we run 608 calls just for the month of October. So we're up and going and up to a good year so far. Just to make you aware, we're trying to do something the service has never done, and that's inspect all the businesses within Suwannee County. It's a requirement. It hasn't been done before, so that's our goal for this year, to try to get all the businesses within our system, get them all inspected, and get everybody, fire safe with all the businesses. So you may receive a phone call from some of your constituents that we visited them. We're trying to work with them as much as possible. We're lenient, giving them plenty of a time frame to get those things done. But if you do receive a phone call, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and we'll ease it as best as we can. Through the last fiscal year, we gave out 1,800 CPR cards to residences of Suwannee County. That's through Branford and Live Oak, through the high schools, through medical facilities within home health nursing, things like that. So that's a great number for us. Within a rural community, that CPR and that first initiation of CPR within a rural community is critical. So we're proud to be a part of that. You'll see coming up at some of the next board meetings, mutual aid and automatic aid agreements with all the surrounding counties around us, including the city of Live Oak. We're trying to consolidate them all into one agreement, so one agreement per year instead of 3 or 4. We're trying to get that done as quick as we can. And then in the month of October, we had Fire Prevention Month. We saw over 2,500 kids between Branford and Live Oak. We had a new addition to our program this year, so we changed it up a little bit, and we got a good reaction from the kids. So we're up and moving and ready for the new year. So any questions or concerns from the board?
Anybody? Nope. Thank you,
All right.
Chief Summers.
Thank you.
Okay, it's time is 6:32, so we're outside of our window where we can do our public hearing. At 6:30 p.m. or soon thereafter, as the matter can be heard, conduct a public hearing to discuss Suwannee County's Community Development Block Grant application for economic development. At this time, I'd like to open public hearing, and anyone offering testimony to this issue needs to stand and be sworn by the attorney.
Tim?
I'll stand. I make comment. I don't know.
Let me
if
come in.
this- Mr. Fox?
Mr. Fox? Or his representative here?
I haven't seen him.
Looks like you may be speaking on it more than you thought.
I'll fumble through it the best I can.
Okay. I do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give for the board this evening will be the true self you got?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So now we'll give the presentation of the Suwannee County CDBG grant application for economic development to Randy Harris in lieu of Fred Fox. This is not here.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'll be glad to turn the floor over to Mr. Fox if he walks in that door any moment while I'm speaking. In any event, many in the public who have attended these meetings are aware that we've been working on an application with CDBG for funding associated with the rail spur at the Catalyst site. Our total estimated cost of that project is $5.3 million, and that includes relocation of a fairly primitive crossing that exists today. We plan to move that farther to the west on US 90 to accommodate better access to the south end of the Catalyst site. For tonight's purposes, we need to consider 3 resolutions. In your package, you've got a lot of detail that speaks to the numbers of jobs that are being created or proposed to be created by 3 different companies on the Catalyst site, one being Klausner Lumber One LLC, another Matco Industries. And let me just say that while many are familiar with Klausner Lumber One being a sawmill on the Catalyst site, Matco Industries is actually a transloading terminal facility. They will receive product in on rail. They will then place it on trucks and transport that to various locations in and around the area. Cornerstone Biomass Corporation is a wood pellet manufacturing facility. They too have a need for rail and utilization of the rail spur. All three companies have intentions of creating new jobs as well as significant capital investment. I wanted to I would have highlighted some of these things if I thought that I was going to have the privilege of this speaking opportunity this evening. But if you'll bear with me for a moment, Klausner has indicated that they plan to employ an additional 43 people. These will be 43 new jobs that will be evaluated from a date certain when this process begins. They plan to spend an additional $12 million equipping the second phase of their sawmill facility by developing a second log yard. Those who have taken the tour out there, probably on occasion, that's been pointed out to you, that they plan to construct another log yard immediately west of the one that exists today. In addition to that, Matco Industries plans to develop a 55-acre parcel, a property within the catalyst site. They plan to employ 13 full-time employees on site. Give me 1 second here. I'm sorry, $300,000 in construction and equipping the transloading terminal. And then Cornerstone Biomass is developing approximately 10 acres, and they're actually located physically to the north of the access road that goes into the Klausner facility today is where they plan to be located. The Matco facility is on the immediate west side of the Klausner property and will be immediately adjacent to the proposed rail spur. Let's see, where is it? 40 people. The wood pellet manufacturing company, Cornerstone Biomass, plans to employ 40 full-time employees and spend $32 million in capital improvements on their particular site.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. You got anything further?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I do. I'm trying to find my way to it. The requested funds, when we started this process, we had considered at the time requesting a waiver to the rule that's been put in place by the Florida legislature. At one time, the cap on a request for CDBG funding was $750,000. That was changed by the legislature to $1.5 million being the new cap. And when we had our initial discussions on that, we had considered requesting a waiver at that time, and we were going to ask for an additional $400,000, $1.9 million. Well, later, as you know, I came back and said, I'd like to ask for everything that we can ask for. So our waiver request is actually for in an amount of $3 million that we're ultimately asking for. The breakdown of that in the paperwork that you have in the synopsis shows $2,880,000 in CDBG funds for construction of the rail spur and $120,000 of that being for administration. We are still waiting to hear back on our waiver request. I spoke to Patrick Howard in the DEO office last week, and again the week before that. So we're still waiting to get word on our waiver request, and I'm hoping that that goes real well for us. Now I can start speaking slower. I know Mr. Fox is here, but in any event, I'll continue the best I can. Let me go ahead and just tell you as well that in addition to this CDBG request, I spoke again to Jordan Green with DOT. Most of you know, I'm sure all the commissioners are aware that he has been promoted within the Department of Transportation. He works in a different position entirely. However, he is committed. He's committed to Suwannee County and our efforts to try to obtain additional funding from the Department of Transportation as it relates to the catalyst site and this rail spur. When I spoke to him late last week, he indicated that he's hoping to give us some news sometime in the near future regarding that request, and I've actually indicated to him that I need at least $2 million, so he's very much aware of that. Commissioner Wainwright and I had emphasized that in our visit about a month ago. And Mr. Chairman, if I'm Mr. Fox is here now, and Mr. Fox, I'd love to take the opportunity to introduce you and tell you how thrilled I am that you've shown up for this public hearing.
Car fire on 10 and he tore around it, lost almost an hour.
Okay. I've given some of the general information related to this hearing as it relates to job creation and capital investment associated with the three companies. And you can pick up or start over, do whatever.
Yeah,
wish.
let me do that. Let me start by
Okay,
passing around
Fox,
the
you
sign.
need to be sworn before you.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Fox, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give before the board this evening will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you very much.
And again, I apologize for running late, but that's the issue, is I had to detour around a car fire, lost about an hour doing it. I said, basically, the improvements involve running rail, which is almost a mile and a half of rail, 7,525 feet is the estimated length of the rail spur. 2-3 businesses, Klausner, which is going to expand and add a second put-down area for its logs. Matco Industries, which is going to put a transmodal facility, which is basically an area where they take cargo off of train cars, load it on trucks, and deliver it out. And then Cornerstone Biomass Corporation, which is looking at putting in the wood pellet manufacturing facility. And the rail is going to run basically west of Klausner's, in between Klausner's and Matco down property the county already owns. And then Cornerstone Biomass will be served off the northern end of that property through another easement that's the county's, is what we're looking at doing. Between the three of them, we're looking at 92 jobs, 43 jobs from Klausner, 9 jobs from Matco, and 40 jobs from Cornerstone Biomass Corporation. The investments are, for Klausner, they're looking at $12 million for the second laydown area for their logs and for the actual portion of the rail spur they have to put on their property. For Matco, they're looking at about a $300,000 investment. And then for the wood pellet manufacturing facilities, looking at a $32 million investment. Significant investment in there. The rail spur cost estimate is $432,403. The grant, we have requested a waiver. Have not seen the waiver yet. I know Randy talked to them today, and I did as well. Their plan is to present the package to the secretary. They've had staff changes that apparently has delayed it some. They're looking at presenting it next week, so we should have an answer, hopefully, verbally at least, sometime next week. If for some reason they don't approve the request to go from the $1.5 million cap to the $3 million, we would have to have this public hearing over again, because this was advertised at $3 million, with $2,880,000 going toward the rail spur and $120,000 in administrative fees in the grant. The process would be, if you move ahead this evening, there is a $159,678 shortfall between the grant that we're asking for from the state for this from DEO and the DOT money that you currently have for this project. And so one of the documents you have this evening is the county committing to put that up if you can't find it anywhere else. We have to show as we move down the road with this that all the financing is in place, but it's not in there as a match, it's just in there as a gap financing, which allows you, if you find it somewhere else down the road, to replace it with those funds. Again, the grant, the process from when we submit would be about a 4-month process to getting the contract. During that period, all 3 businesses have to show they have their investment capital in hand. If it's a bank loan, basically this bank's ready to close the loan, with the only contingency being the grant. We'll have about a 4 to 6 month process for an environmental review, which is, by the way, what we're doing now for your housing project. We just started that and started the letters going out. And then after that, you can bid out the rail spur and actually start the construction. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have on the project.
Are there any questions of Mr. Fox by the board? Hearing none, we'll open the floor to public comment. Seeing none, we'll close public comment at this time. Is there any further board discussion? Questions? Hearing none, Mr. Fox, do you have anything you'd like to add?
You do have 3 resolutions related to this.
Right.
Not unless you have any issues or questions concerning the project.
Okay. Gentlemen, there's board action required on 3 items, A, B, and C. One is adoption of resolution authorizing the submission of an application for the Small Cities Community Development Block Grant to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for federal fiscal year 2014. The second, numbered B, adoption of a resolution authorizing the implementation of the long-term and short-term objectives of Suwannee County Community Development Plan. And number C, adoption of resolution authorizing the use of $159,678 of Suwannee County funding as gap funding for the Small Cities Economic Development Community Development Block Grant application the county is submitting to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for federal fiscal year 2014.
And these are 2014 funds, so that's the correct date.
All right. So you've heard all 3 of the board actions. We'll start with A unless you have any further comments.
Yes, sir.
What are the wishes of the board in regards to number A in your packet?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move approval in addition to, would also add with authorization the chairman to sign any subsequent documentation with that.
Thank you. Motion made by Commissioner Wainwright. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Fleming. Is there any further discussion on item A? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Item B, what are the wishes of the board?
Make a motion, we adopt resolution number B.
Motion made by Commissioner Sessions. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Gamble. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Item number C, what are the wishes of the board?
Move approval, Mr. Chairman, with authorization granted to chairman to sign subsequent documentation.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Wainwright, seconded by Commissioner Gamble. Is there any further discussion on item C? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Mr. Fox, do you have anything further?
That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. This time, I'd like to close public hearing on this matter. Thank you, gentlemen, for that. Moving back into our agenda, item number 13, under general business, discuss with possible board action amendments to interlocal agreement with member counties of the North Central Florida Regional Planning Council. We'll turn our attention and welcome up Scott Coons, Executive Director of the North Florida Regional Planning Council. Mr. Coons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Appearing before you tonight to ask the board's consideration for some amendments to the interlocal agreement which forms the North Central Florida Regional Planning Council, an association of local governments which the county is a member. During its past legislative session, the legislature revised the boundaries of the regional councils in the state and dissolved the Withlacoochee Regional Planning Council to our immediate south. And they then transferred those 5 counties to the neighboring regions. So Levy County and Marion County have been transferred to the North Central Florida region, Citrus and Hernando to the Tampa Bay region, and Sumter County to the East Central Florida region in Orlando. Before I ask you to consider that, I want to take a few minutes and run through a slideshow to give you a very broad overview of the council and some of the activities we've engaged in this past year. I'll talk very briefly about who we are, what we do, and then a summary. I mentioned with the dissolution of the Withlacoochee Regional Planning Council, there are now 10 region councils throughout the state. The mission of the North Central Florida Council is very simple: to improve the quality of life of the citizens throughout the region, and we do that through 4 principal activities: coordinating growth management, protecting regional resources, promoting economic development, and providing technical services to member local governments. The region will now consist of 13 counties, formerly 11 counties, and 45 municipalities, and 13 of those municipalities are member cities. The region is the largest in geography in the state now, with 10,000 square miles, and with a population just under 1 million of about 900,000 residents. Council itself is made of about 2/3 local elected officials and 1/3 gubernatorial appointees. Commissioner Sessions is your representative that serves on the council. Counties under state law are required to be members, and cities can be voluntary members of councils. Those are the current 11-member counties, and then the addition of the 2 new counties, Levy and Marion, bringing the total to 13. And those are the current member cities, including the city of Live Oak here in Suwannee County. The council is governed by executive committee. Current chair is County Commissioner Reddick from Bradford County. The vice chair is County Commissioner Davis from Madison County. The secretary-treasurer is Ms. Thomas, a gubernatorial appointee from Dixie County. The executive committee member is Mayor Davis from the city of Waldo. And the immediate past chair is Commissioner Spooner from the city of Stark. They're joined by 10 members on the board of directors. And you can see Mayor Nobles from the city of Live Oak also serves on the board of directors. We have several ex officio members, state agencies that participate with the council: the Department of Economic Opportunity, Department of Environmental Protection, and Department of Transportation, as well as the water management districts in the region. Council has 5 principal activities. First is regional, just as you're required, but to have a community comprehensive plan to guide the future growth and development of the county. Council has what's known as a comprehensive strategic regional policy plan, which focuses on 5 subjects: affordable housing, economic development, emergency preparedness, natural resources, and transportation. In the area of regional, we're also the designated clearinghouse for federal grant and loan applications, which means we review all federal grant and loan applications and provide advisory comments to the funding agencies. Last year, the council reviewed some 75 projects totaling nearly a little bit over $26 million in federal assistance. Second area is public safety. We're very active with the North Central Florida Local Emergency Planning Committee. Every time I refer to them, I point out it's really a misnomer. It's the North Central Florida Regional Emergency Planning Committee, made up of first responders from local governments: fire rescue, law enforcement, emergency medical services, and emergency management. They have a regional response plan. They meet quarterly and have agreements amongst each other to respond to any hazardous material incident in the region. That group formed the North Central Florida Regional Hazardous Materials Response Team, which we also provide staff support to. And Suwannee County is a member of that organization. You adopted a local cost recovery ordinance. If there was a hazardous material incident on the interstate, on a rail line in the county, or at a facility, the surrounding counties that are members of this organization would help respond and clean up that incident, and the cost would be charged to the responsible party. Hopefully their insurance company would end up paying for it. We also work with the Division of Emergency Management and the other councils in the state in hurricane evacuation planning and preparedness. We identify evacuation routes, inland shelters, and then areas subject to storm surge from tropical events. As I mentioned, we do quite a bit of training through the Local Emergency Planning Committee. This past year, some 27 classes at no additional cost to cities and counties. It is funded through a number of federal and state grant programs. Trained over 300 responders and over 5,000 hours of training. Under state law, each county is required to monitor any business that generates hazardous waste, and on a fee-for-service contract, we do this work for 9 counties, including Suwannee County, do the annual site visits and file the reports with the Department of Environmental Protection on your behalf. Third area is economic development. We're a designated economic development district by the U.S. Department of Commerce. It means we're the designated agency for developing strategic economic development planning for the region. We provide support to local governments and economic development organizations, as well as doing economic impact analysis studies. We have a comprehensive economic development strategy. We have an advisory group made up of local economic developers and workforce, higher education, and other interests. Mr. Jackson serves on that committee representing Suwannee County. The current strategy is based on the Florida Chamber Foundation's 6 pillars for securing Florida's future economy. We reported this past year to the U.S. Department of Commerce over 300 jobs and over $400 million of private investment to further the strategies in the plan. The 5 strategies are to promote the 2 Catalyst sites. You just talked about your Catalyst site here in Suwannee County, where Cluster 1 is recently located, and the second one is over in Columbia County, east of the Lake City Airport. Second is to promote the area for regional tourism. Third is to provide additional workforce for healthcare and life sciences, to seek opportunities for multimodal infrastructure, and to support and expand regional business incubators and research parks. I mentioned tourism. The council, some 2 decades ago now, formed the original Florida Tourism Task Force. This is a separate affiliated organization, also through an interlocal agreement amongst the counties and the tourist development councils in 12 counties in north central Florida to promote the area for nature-based, heritage-based, and cultural-based tourism, and the council provides staff support to that organization. Those are the current participating counties. As you can see, Suwannee County is not on that list. We would again encourage you to take a look at this program for a modest annual contribution of $4,000 from your annual bed tax. You'll be able to leverage that with now a $350,000 marketing budget to promote North Florida. The organization has a very robust website. They promote the area's Visit Natural North Florida. They attend trade shows throughout Florida as well as the Eastern United States, now in concert with Visit Florida, international trade show each year. They also have collateral material, which are brochures in motel racks up and down I-75 throughout Georgia, as well as in Florida down to Wildwood. Fourth area of activity is local government assistance. We assist a number of cities and counties in complying with the State Community Planning Act. Those are the 6 counties we currently work with, and then 8 municipalities as well. And we assisted those communities in processing some 68 development applications this past year. Also active in the Community Development Block Grant Program. You just had a hearing for that Phase 2 of your project at the Catalyst site. Over the past 40-some years, the council has secured over $55 million for over 100 projects in communities throughout north central Florida. The fifth and final area is transportation. We have 2 activities there. We staff the Metropolitan Planning Organization in Gainesville, which is the Gainesville City Commission and Alachua County Commission, sitting together as a joint transportation board, which is required under federal legislation for communities over a population of 50,000 to receive federal transportation funds for road and transit projects. This past year, a study we did for them to incorporate safety into long-range transportation planning was recognized by the National Trade Association, the National Association of Development Organizations, for an innovation award for that project. The second area is the Transportation Disadvantage Program, which you are all very familiar with. This is the state-funded program. Each year when we renew our auto tags, $1.50 from that fee goes into a state trust fund to provide paratransit services to disabled individuals, elderly individuals, and low-income individuals who don't have transportation. And the program in the 11 counties which we coordinate provided over 250,000 trips to individuals, primarily for medical visits, dialysis treatments, cancer treatments, and other doctor appointments. Council is what's known as the designated official planning agency by the State Commission for this program in 11 of our 13 counties now, including Suwannee County. And we also do this work in Alachua County through the Metropolitan Planning Organization in urban areas. We accomplish all this with a very modest budget of just a little over $1.5 million. As you can see from this pie chart, our revenue sources are very diversified. We don't have all our eggs in one basket. We receive some funding from the Metropolitan Planning Organization, local service contracts, the state for the Transportation Disadvantage Program, a few dollars from the federal government for economic development planning, and then that orange-shaped piece of the pie, about 11 o'clock up there, is local member dues, which is only 7% of our overall budget, which is a 30 cents per capita contribution from member local governments. And then the expenditures kind of track the source of funding. Transportation is now about half of our activities, and a quarter is local government service, and another 20% economic development. I'm extremely fortunate to work with a very dedicated team of 12 individuals that make all this happen in these 5 program areas throughout this 13-county area. That's the current senior management team, and these are the line item folks on a daily basis who work with communities across north central Florida to provide these services. So in summary, takeaway points, there are now 10 regional councils throughout the state. 2/3 are elected officials, 1/3 are citizens appointed by the governor. We are a planning, coordinating, facilitating, convening agency. We are not a regulatory agency. We do not issue any permits. We cannot require anyone to do anything, nor we can prohibit anyone from doing anything. I like to say we have the power and persuasion of good ideas. We're an advisory and recommendation body. And again, the 5 areas of activity, which are very diversified, are regional, public safety, economic development, local government assistance, and transportation. That concludes an overview of the council and our activities. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have, if any.
Mr. Coons, that's not the first time you've done that, is it?
No, it's not. I was in Hamilton County this morning at their board meeting.
Are there any questions of Mr. Coons by the board?
No.
Mr. Coons, we thank you for all you do for Suwannee County
Appreciate
and
that.
the state.
Now, the item on your agenda, as I mentioned, are some amendments to the interlocal agreement which forms the council. In order to add Levy and Marion County, we first need to change the geography as described in the interlocal agreement to add them by name. Secondly, the second significant change is in the representation formula in the agreement. Under the current agreement, it's a population-based formula. If we were to apply that after adding Levy and Marion County, the membership of the council representatives would go from 48 to 66. So the council is unanimously recommending to the member local governments to keep the total membership at 48. And to accomplish that, each local government would continue to have 1 representative. Any local government with a population over 100,000, which would be Alachua County, Marion County, and the city of Gainesville, would have 3 representatives. That's a reduction for all 3 of them. Alachua County currently has 4. City of Gainesville has 5. Marion County would have had 10 representatives under the current population formula. In addition, there's a number of other housekeeping and administrative amendments we're recommending at this time. The agreement had not been amended since 1990. So we're doing some housekeeping, removing some outdated and antiquated provisions, and also amending the duties and responsibilities to conform to Chapter 186 as it currently reads in Florida statutes. So, Mr. Chairman, those are the proposed amendments, and to say they are unanimously recommended by the council to the member local governments. And I believe you have a resolution before you to adopt those amendments by reference.
Thank you, Mr. Coons. Any questions about the further information that Mr. Coons gave us with regard to the breakdown of the population or any of the representatives or anything like that? Hearing none, what are the wishes of the board with regarding the entering into the amendments to the interlocal agreement with the member counties in North Central Florida Regional Planning Council?
Mr. Chairman, were you offering these, the separate requests of amendments? Are we packaging them all into one
Yeah,
motion?
we can just package them into one motion if that's, I think.
You have the amendments and you have the enabling resolution.
Right, it's just one enabling resolution to do that, so.
I'll move approval of the collective amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Wainwright. Motion
Second.
made by Commissioner Wainwright, seconded by Commissioner Sessions. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you, Mr. Coons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, for your continued support, and we look forward to continue working with the county in the future. Thank you.
Great. All right, moving on, item number 14 under general.
You still have a
The
resolution.
resolution to
Enabling
do.
resolution.
Oh, I didn't know.
I'll move approval of adoption of the enabling resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Wainwright, seconded by Commissioner Fleming. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, now we can move on. Item number 14, consider a request from the Tourist Development Council regarding information associated with the bed tax. We'll give our attention now to Austin Richmond, Executive Director, Suwannee County Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Here today on behalf of the TDC to more or less respectfully request that the Board of County Commissioners ask for a list of those subject to the bed and head tax from Sharon Jordan's, the tax collector's office. I'm going to take this minute just to read you the letter so the public can as well hear. The Tourist Development Council respectfully requests that the Board of County Commissioners obtain a report from the tax collector's office regarding the bed tax, including but not limited to a complete list of entities subject to the tax, history of revenue collected from each, cost of collection, delinquency, and associated penalty, process for handling delinquency, and projections of uncollected revenue resulting from delinquency. The Council believes that the subject report will be an effective tool in the planning process and ultimately fulfilling the public's expectations associated with bed tax revenues. So that's really a request from the council for that list.
Okay, great. Are there any questions of the board to Mr. Richmond, representative of the Tourist Development Council? Hearing none, would the board like to make a request of the tax collector to do this?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Sessions. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Seconded by Commissioner Gamble. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, thank you, Mr. Richmond. Moving on to item number 15, discuss with possible board action additional IT personnel. We'll turn our attention again to Randy Harris, County Administrator.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we recently received an email from guardian ad litem who had, I believe, been instructed by someone maybe with some regional oversight indicating that the local government had a responsibility for providing services related to internet, computer, software, repair services. So we obtained a copy of the statute that speaks to that, and we've provided that for you in your packet. I spoke to Mr. Baker and I spoke to Dustin. Probably most of you are aware that County Commission Departments really does not have personnel that serve in that capacity directly. We utilize the services of those two individuals that work in the clerk's office. They've been very gracious to help us with problems that we have, but they are spread very thin, and by virtue of the requirement to take on these additional tasks now for guardian ad litem, we had a conversation on what we're going to need to do to continue to provide services. And in your packet, you have a budget figure of $48,000 a year, which includes benefits for one additional person to assist them in this countywide endeavor of your departments, as well as those that have already got a responsibility that they're already handling, and this new responsibility with guardian ad litem. I'll also add that I spoke to them about space. There's apparently a closet that we can house this person in that's been storing, I mean, literally, that's what it is, been storing some equipment in, but there's sufficient funding right now for the equipment that this individual would need to utilize initially, and we can accommodate the space with what we have today. So this is a request to consider adding this additional position and budget number. I'll work that out with the clerk if you wish, and I just need the board's consideration on this particular item.
So I have some questions. Does anybody else want to jump in on this?
I've got one, but you're probably going to ask it, so go ahead.
Well, I'll just start with the tipping of the scales towards hiring another one was obviously this addition of responsibilities by guardian ad litem of the person's time that I guess that we would hire. What portion of their time would be dedicated to simply doing this guardian ad litem stuff? I mean, is that the totality of their, or help me understand that, because I'm kind of confused.
Actually, I think it's something that has been coming for quite some time anyway. The reality is that we have two gentlemen that handle these responsibilities for all of your departments today, as well as the clerk, and they're just loaded up. When we call, this is not a complaint, and I don't want it to be construed as one, but because of the workload they have, often they can't drop what they're doing and come running, and it may be several hours, even half a day, sometimes the next day before they can come handle ours because they're already in the middle of trying to get someone else back up and running. When our computers go down, it's a very serious issue in our office, and it would be very serious for most offices right now.
So this person would fall under the existing IT department, the direction, they would receive their direction from the existing IT department.
I would say that that might be the best way to handle it right now, because right now, everyone knows that if they've got a problem, they know where to call. And that work is being dispatched between Dustin and Dave right now.
So that being the case, it falls under the clerk. The IT side of things, we get funding through fine and forfeiture of $200,000 a year. Would this additional funding there then come out of fine and forfeiture for this position?
The board would have to make that decision, but if you're going to continue funding it the same way that you have, I would say next year you would need to consider that as an addition to fine and forfeiture fund.
So this year, the additional funding would come from where in order to fund?
I'll give you an example. If you were to take it from contingency and make a transfer, you could transfer it into fine and forfeiture if you chose to do so.
You mean transfer into fine and
forfeiture?
Okay. Commissioner Wainwright, does that cover any of your questions?
Yeah, my questions were, I didn't want them to be limited to specifically just guardian ad litem. Wanted them to work within the confines of the existing department. The budgetary concerns that I had, I don't know, maybe this isn't the time to talk. I just think about the monies that the sheriff turns back to the county. I mean, it's we've got monies that we could use there to fund that position and not specifically add to or take away from the general revenue. But for the time being, we're going to have to just, I guess, limit it to the general revenue contingency fund.
Why must we do that? Why can't we just do a budget amendment at this point?
We can do that. I guess what I was getting at is I don't think we can tackle any fine and forfeiture issues right now.
Well, I mean, the IT is funded out of that, and the various.
I'm talking about
various,
additional funding.
Right, the various fees that are funding from fine and forfeiture are specifically used for IT, and they range anywhere in our member county or population peer class range anywhere from 150 to 500,000. So that's specifically what those funds are to be used for, and I don't know that they necessarily need to come out of general fund or be transferred into fine and forfeiture, especially if monies are being turned back in each year.
Well, with the inclusion of guardian ad litem, there's no doubt in my mind we've got to go ahead and add an additional person. I'll make a motion to approve that, and for the time being, we can, I don't know, however you all want to do the funding, I'm willing to include that in the
Mr.
motion.
Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Hold on.
I didn't clarify let me just hold off on the motion till we clarify the funding.
So you withdraw your motion?
Yeah, let's go ahead and make the discussion, and if y'all got some ideas on how you want to do the funding, it doesn't matter to me.
Commissioner Fleming?
That was my question, where was the funds going to be coming from? With the addition of hiring a new employee, would it be now, or we do it, during the next budget cycle?
Well, we certainly could, but we have a need now we have
So
to.
that would be the amendment?
Well, that's up to the board to decide. We could either make an amendment from where the funds could come from, either fine and forfeiture, or we can just transfer them for the general fund, which is the quickest, easiest way. But, we're running pretty lean right now. So, that's just less money we have to work with, and we're right at the beginning of a budget year. So my preference is just, if we're funding IT out of fine and forfeiture, that's where we need to continue to fund it from. And if necessary, we can go ahead and start the hiring process, but in the meantime, next meeting, do a budget amendment or something like that, as appropriate to fund that position. Mr. Harris.
What I was going to say was that, as all of you are aware, that traditionally, we don't think that much about it till later in the year typically, but we always have undesignated funds that come back in, and we will have those again this year as well, that have not been allocated. So you're not going to come up short by year end by any stretch. If you identify the general fund for now, you know that your fine and forfeiture fund requires a transfer in. So it's a very general statement to say that it's going to come from general revenue, and we can refine that later when the transfer is actually necessary.
Okay, any further questions?
No, I'll just say I'm fine with going ahead and moving forward with it coming out of the general fund this year.
Second.
Wait,
That'll work.
oh, geez. So let's, Commissioner Gamble, if you could, for clarification, just restate your motion.
Just make a motion that we approve hiring or creating the new position for the IT department that would be, I guess, under the current IT department. And we'll fund it out of board contingency.
All right, thank you. Motion made by Commissioner Gamble, seconded by Commissioner Wainwright. Is that okay with you?
Yes, sir.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. Moving on to item number 16, discuss with possible board action amendments to the personnel rules and regulations and adoption of resolution. We'll turn our attention again to Randy Harris, County Administrator.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, from time to time, we amend the rules and regulations. And typically, we try to stretch it out 2 or 3 years. We capture some of the amendments that occur in that interim. This draft reflects changes that have occurred over the last 2 or 3 years and some other minor modifications. And I'll be glad to just take questions or comments if there are any.
I have one question, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Wainwright?
Do we have a problem with bullying, or is that just something that we want to be proactive, or something that's being mandated that we do, or that we include in this, or what?
That is actually the product of a seminar. The section that's been added in here on workplace bullying is something that was recommended in one of the seminars by some of the experts that defend counties.
Somebody's mama taught that class?
And there's another portion in here as well on the use of county computers and internet usage.
Saw that. I like that.
That's where that came from as well.
Okay, I didn't have a problem with that. I didn't have a problem with any of it. I was just concerned about the bullying part. Was that prompted by any particular action, or just, okay.
Anybody else?
change.
Commissioner Sessions?
Page 41, under accumulation, there's a limited number of personnel may be allowed to carry up to 400 hours. How is this group of personnel picked or chosen, or is it at just your discretion?
The board actually adopted that previously, but I'll just explain to you that yes, pretty much. But any of you could just about determine who these people are going to be. They're going to be in a supervisory position. These are the people that would typically, you would expect to go out in the middle of the night, pull trees off the road, emergency rescue type people. There's probably, I would speculate, no more than 8 or 10 through all of the departments combined.
We're at really like Tropical Storm Debbie when it,
Yeah,
we
I
had so many
understand
that accumulated hours, and it was too difficult for them to try to work those hours out before the close of the year.
Well, let me ask a question. So you still got your cap at 240. They can carry 320, and then you got some that'll cap at 400. But down here on E, you've got that vacation will be paid out, all accrued vacation. So is that going to be a limited? There's still a cap.
There is a cap at the beginning of the year. Cap's still in place, it's 320. And there's still some that will go over 320. And they try to get it back down throughout the course of the year.
We have a cap of 320, but when somebody retires or quits, we only pay out 240, correct?
My understanding is that they're getting paid their unused annual leave.
Well, the old policy says up to 240 hours. And then we have it, the new one, will it be paid for all accrued vacation leave?
The new one says that they'd be paid for any unused annual leave. one thing that we discussed last year was unused annual leave and whether or not to pay it out during the course of the year and allow an employee to continue working. And the board said, no, you don't want to do that, which was fine. But when they cease to be employed by the county, they have earned their annual leave. And if you look at the proposed definitions, there's a distinction, a very profound distinction made between annual leave, which is earned leave, and sick leave, which is time that is given to employees. And that distinction was placed there very intentionally. But having said that, when an employee ceases to be employed with the county, this policy would allow them to be paid for any unused annual leave.
I guess my question is...
And I'll give you an example.
At the end of the...
policy of 320, if you said 320, if a person, for whatever reason, needed to discontinue their employment with the county, should they be penalized and not be compensated for their unused annual leave? That's really the question. This policy would not penalize them, but go ahead and compensate them for their unused annual leave.
Up to what amount? 320?
Up to the 320
400?
or whatever they happen to have on the books
So at the end of the year, there's still a cap.
If they continue to be employed, the cap is in place. If they cease to be employed, then they would be paid for whatever time is on the books at that time.
Recognizing that we may have a handful that might exceed the 320. If something happened during that year that they were going to
That could
quit.
occur. Theoretically, that could occur.
We're going to make, they're going to make, as, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but you're going to make sure that department heads try to have their employees work out those excess hours and get them off the books.
In fact, today, an email went out, because we just received the list. We get a list about this time every year, informing us of how many employees are over their, or it's anticipated will be over the 320 by year end. So we sent an email out to all the department heads, go ahead and try to work that out with those employees.
The 6.5 dozen other, they're still getting paid for it. If they've earned it.
They're going to be paid for it, but they're going to be paid less if they're paid when they leave
Yes,
than they would if
they
you were
stayed.
paying them and they stayed
right.
and they continued to work. So I think that's why the pay in lieu of vacation leave is not allowed, because you had employees who were working and wanted to be part, you could have had employees working and being paid. And this issue very likely will never go away. I mean, every county struggles with this, and every agency struggles with it. I can tell you in the private sector, it was easy to pay employees for their vacation time and hope that they didn't take the vacation, because private sector business is difficult unless you're overstaffed.
Don't have to.
And
Rarely.
typically the private sector is not overstaffed. So in many cases, they don't have a problem paying their employees their vacation leave and hoping that they don't take vacation. So they get to work and they're paid annual leave at the same time. But this just says that they will be compensated for their annual leave if they cease employment with the county.
Are there any further questions?
I have a preference of staying at the 240. It's not that big of a deal, but I know the state does it at 240, the county does it at 240, and it's an issue if you let it be an issue every year. It's not an issue for the state because they don't bend on it. At 240 is your cutoff, and at the end of the year, if you got it, you got it. If you don't, you walk away from it. I just feel like if we go now to 400 and 320, they're going to max out at that eventually. And one of the reasons why we added, I think, 6 employees, the EMS fire rescue, was to give them the excess employees to be able to let people off to work those numbers down. that number's gonna keep creeping up on us over time. I think it was set at a spot that was reasonable, and I'd like to see us leave it there.
Mr. Chairman, I would just comment that I don't disagree that we did add those to try to get overtime down. But a lot of your departments are actually operating, like in the case of the road department, one machine, one employee. So we've got machines that we lease, and we talked about this in our budget workshops. You've got a machine sitting there that you're paying for that no one's operating because you've got one man, one machine. And I'm not recommending that we pay right now these employees while they're working, pay for the vacation time and have them continue to work. But the issue of them earning annual leave is one that I think when they cease to be employed and they've earned annual leave and treated differently than we do in sick leave, I think it's a reasonable tool and incentive for retention as well, to compensate them for what they've earned.
Chief Summers?
I'd like to just make a comment on this because I have 11 employees that are forced to take leave or lose by the end of the year, and it's just it's an operational issue because they continue to build. They take time off during the year, but they're still accruing, and we're talking, a notice comes out, and we're forcing them to take leave or lose it. So we did hire employees. A lot of that was for sick and to reduce overtime, but this annual leave issue is just continue to be a recurring issue. As far as I've been with the service for 15 years with Suwannee County, it's always an issue. So,
What are the hours that those 11 currently have?
as far as
And the reason I ask that, if they're already over 320, this time next year, we're gonna have the same conversation.
that's right, it's a recurring problem every year because they're
Even-
going to
even at
burn
400.
back down to 320, and then we're going to be here the same time next year. And this is where we were last year, and at the same time, I asked to just go ahead and pay them out, because I'd rather have them on shift than have leave and have to pay for coverage and find coverage and all this other issues.
I know during the budget workshops, we asked for annual leave, comp time, sick leave report. Did you ever get that ran for us?
I will go ahead and run it. I'll have it by next meeting.
Whatever happened, are the time clocks up and running? Are they running now? Do we know?
We should be up any time. We're working on that diligently. We had some issues, but we're fixing to be up and running hopefully next week.
Okay.
One big issue was we had to change the service provider.
Service provider, servers,
Speed just
a
wasn't
couple other
there.
things. And that was just time. To get the service provider in was a ridiculous amount of time. As far as leave for the leave, you're talking consistently, each person is at least over 50 to 70 hours, over 320.
Over 320.
Except for myself, and I'm just going to lose time. I have over 400, and I'm not going to take 2, 3, 4 weeks off at a time
So,
to be away from my department.
so all these employees are over 20 years?
Over 20 years? No, sir.
So
No, they're not over 20 years. They're just
they're not accruing 18 a month yet?
no,
So
sir.
these are 14 a month
Yes, sir.
employees? Okay. So basically, they've got to use, if they max out, they've still got to use 168 hours every year because they've accrued it that year.
Yes, sir.
So, okay. So basically, they got to have over 4 weeks of vacation every year planned off, and then just to be able to stay at that
Just to
level.
stay at that minimum rate. Most of them, will take 1 or 2, but you figure 4 weeks. They work. If they catch a Saturday and a Sunday, they can take off Wednesday and be off a week. So they're only burning 24 hours at a time.
That really makes the case, though. Point is, I don't want them to take off for 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I can't afford for them to take off 3 or 4 weeks, but if they cease to be employed with the county, I don't want to penalize them either. I want to compensate them for what they have earned at the time that they cease to be employed with the county, because that doesn't affect your ongoing issue with personnel.
And this is what this is, has been an issue before, and I just, I think that we just need to discuss it a little further. I mean,
I'd rather not
we,
make a
we,
decision
we've,
tonight.
we've been dealing, we dealt with this at Suwannee Valley Transit, and we've been fairly successful in working that down, and I don't know, I just, raising the hours, I mean, we had this discussion last year, and the thing was, that just like you say, it's just, if you raise the time limit, then it just continues to go up. I mean,
Compounding effect.
so is it just Jamie's employees that we're looking at this, or how, what do we have on the other side?
Oh, this is every department. This would affect all of the departments, this issue of paying them when they leave. And we don't have that many that leave, quite frankly.
How many did we have to leave last year,
This
Randy?
this wouldn't make any difference which department they were in. If they leave employment with the county, they would be paid for their earned annual leave that they've accrued.
All right. Well, if there's no further discussion, what are the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll offer a motion to approve the amendments offered in the personnel rules and regulations.
Motion made by Commissioner Wainwright. Do I hear a second? Hearing none, this motion dies for lack of a second. Is there any further discussion?
I'll offer up a motion to approve it and leave the hours at 2:40 on section E, number 1.
Motion made by Commissioner Gamble. Do I hear a second? Hearing none, that motion dies for lack of a second. Is there any further discussion or any further motions that would be made on this issue?
I'll just make, we'll just bring it back at the next meeting. Everybody go home and look at it and kick it around some more.
I'd like to, we were talking about having a workshop discussing certain things, and in this workshop, I'd like us to have a little bit more time to discuss it.
Okay.
And then the capital improvement workshop, I'd like to
Sure.
set aside some time to discuss this too.
Okay. Well, we can add that into that workshop. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll move on to item number 17, additional agenda items. The chairman calls for any additional agenda items. I have none, or except one. I do have one additional agenda item. It's an informational item in relating to surplus that we have a list. We have two.
There are two items, Mr. Chairman.
I've only got one listed.
Oh, I'm sorry. One of them is actually a supplemental agreement that came in about 15 minutes before we started this meeting from DOT. They have a desire to give us an additional $225,008 in additional funding for County Road 252. We got that sent over, and I'd ask the board to consider approving that agreement for the additional funding.
Okay.
And allow the chairman to execute that supplemental agreement.
So this came over from DOT at the last minute?
That's correct. Mrs. Evans sent that over.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer something for board consideration.
Okay.
Going back to our discussion at the last meeting, we were talking about natural gas compressor stations.
Right.
I would like for the board to consider a resolution worded in such a way that, well, in opposition to the placement, the current placement of the compressor station that they have listed.
Okay. All right. So you would just say we would like to give staff direction by consensus to develop something like that, or maybe
They could even incorporate council to draft some type of resolution in opposition to the, in our discussion last week, for those that weren't here, the compressor station on the Sable Trail line is in O'Brien and not as it was originally listed, and it's in a fairly residential area, and it just seems like it, with the information that was given last week and what I've researched in addition to that, it's pretty close to a lot of homes. And I just seem like it would cause some problems, and I think that I'd like to, don't know what it'll do. We're certainly past our time to offer comments
Okay.
to FERC, but again, I don't think it'd be a wasted effort. I think it'd be an opportunity just to voice our opinion in opposition to that.
Okay. Ask our council whether or not, what tact we ought to take with that particular issue.
Well, I mean, we can express our opinion, by a resolution, being able to do that. I don't think you can, what we really would do tonight then would just be to instruct staff and council to, do that. And let me bring back the language to you at the next meeting to be able to,
Okay.
to go forward.
Excellent. Okay. Do I hear a consensus on the board that we would like staff and board council to develop that resolution?
I agree.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay, I agree as
Thank you,
well.
gentlemen.
You're welcome. Moving back over to our two additional agenda items. One, the DOT, is it a supplemental agreement that we need to execute? We need to give authorization, the chairman, to execute. I'll remind the board that we've already awarded the contract, I think, for that particular project, and so this is just something in addition to that.
This is to make up the difference between the bid amount and the actual original funding that had been allocated.
Right, okay. What are the wishes of the board in this matter?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Wainwright, seconded by Commissioner Gamble. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The second additional agenda item that I had was we've developed a list of equipment and items that are in the Nettie Baysden School that we would like to offer. We've already declared surplus, but it's a list that we need to go ahead and approve and then authorize for the disperse, how do you want to say it, Mr. Harris? Dissolution of, surplus of.
We'll probably bid these items off, but again, I'll emphasize that these are items that were not in the county commission's inventory.
Right.
Old stuff that was left in there from the school before. So the board authorized us to go ahead and handle that last meeting, but now we have a list that we're presenting for the public record. So I just ask that the board consider approving this list, declaring it surplus.
Excellent. Okay. What are the wishes of the board?
Make a motion to approve the list.
Second.
Surplus.
Motion made by Commissioner Sessions, seconded by Commissioner Fleming. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right. We'll move now into the public comments and concerns section. I have received none, no comment cards this evening. We have Mr. Ward would like to say a couple words, very briefly.
Jim Ward, 27476 29th Place, Branford. I'd like to ask that you briefly revisit number 13 while Mr. Coons is still here. And have a brief discussion to refresh my memory. Mr. Coons, you said Suwannee County is no longer a member of, what was that, the Tourist Development Council? Yes, and it's a $4,000 fee to Suwannee County. Gentlemen, could you have a brief discussion, perhaps involve Dr. Jackson here, about why this is now, because I don't remember how we got off of that route, or why.
Thank you, Mr. Ward.
Thank you.
I'll offer some comments on that. I don't know the history of why we're not, but I did hear him in his presentation say that perhaps the head-to-bed tax could be used to fund that particular we call it admission fee, or we call it our member fee. Yeah. And I was going to address that with the Tourist Development Board at our next meeting. And maybe Mr. Richmond could speak to that matter.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to kind of give you a little bit of history, of the Tourist Development Center as well as the Suwannee River Valley Marketing Group. It's a group that markets our area, a tri-county area. And so when we look at dues and the amount of dues that we pay, we would have to pay for 2 separate dues to do the same thing. But I'd like to talk to Scott and figure out, what it is that basically is so great. I've been to a couple meetings with Steve Dopp, who's a representative, a partner with them. So, and that's probably why we'd have to address it with the Tourist Development Council, see what they feel, if they want to participate in both.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Richmond. Mr. Wainwright?
I'll offer that when I served as, on the Tourist Development Council, I had brought that up, and there was just some limited discussion, and basically just they didn't want to participate, and it might have been just for a lack of information.
Well,
Maybe a poor presenter.
Well, like I said, I was going to bring it up at the next meeting, or ask Austin to include it on the agenda for the next meeting, and just see if there's some discussion that can be had, and perhaps a member of that group would like to attend that meeting, and Mr. Coons and Mr. Richmond, you can exchange business cards and kind of work that out. And then if the Tourist Development Council sees fit, they may fund that in that way. But if the board, certainly, if the board by consensus would like to send a letter to the Tourist Development Council, we certainly can do that in support of that, if that's something that the board feels strongly about.
I'd rather you just handle it.
Okay, I'll do it. All right, Mr. Ward, does that answer your question? Thank you. All right, moving on to the number 19, Administrators' Comments and Information. Harris, you got anything? Nope, saying none. Board members' inquiries, requests, and comments. Commissioner Fleming, do you have anything?
No, sir, I don't.
Mr. Sessions?
Next week, we have the Veterans Day Parade, inviting everybody out. Mr. Hancock may want to say something about the parade on the Suwannee too, or, all right. We're gonna, any veteran that we can fit on the trolley will be in the parade.
I know, speaking of the parades, Commissioner Fleming and myself, we did the homecoming parade, and I was thinking, maybe the constitutional officers kind of do their thing, and they kind of ride together and stuff like that. And I think it'd be nice if we had an effort between the 5 members of this board to do something in these parades as well. I don't know how the board feels about that, but I thought this might be a good opportunity to kind of discuss that a little bit. Not that we'd spend a tremendous amount of money, but that I think it would show some solidarity and some good faith, and because the constitutional officers do it. What do you guys think?
It's fine with me.
Well, there's parades around the county now. There's parades
right.
in Branford. There's the Blueberry Parade, and
Well, you don't have to come. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. Well, I mean, it's.
There's just no effort. There's
I
nobody
don't
that
know.
heads up an effort.
I guess what I'm getting at is, I don't think I'd get y'all to participate down in Branford a whole lot.
Sure, I just never hear about it.
I mean, you're welcome to. I'd love to. I ride with Jamie on the buggy.
Yeah,
I mean, we're gonna start throwing candy at the people.
Yeah.
Constitutionals are more popular than we are. They might take out all 5 of us
Yeah, they
at
don't
one
get
time.
blamed for taxes like we do.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. It's crazy. Well, I just thought that if somebody maybe wanted to head that up, we could do a little something. I don't know if there might be a vehicle available that we could ride in, or if we wanted to ride on top of the fire truck. There's a good view from up there.
It is.
It's uncomfortable, but it's a good view.
It's uncomfortable. That is correct. It's not comfy.
I'm sorry, that fire hose just doesn't feel good the way you sit on it.
We're made to ride there.
No,
Huh?
sir. But I'm not opposed to it if we want to get together.
I don't, I say
think,
I'd participate, I don't mind.
I think
That's right. Yeah, now, we did get dropped off on the side of the road, I will tell you that. Commissioner Fleming and I had to find, well, you sent somebody back for us after a while, but we did get dropped off on the side of the road. So,
Duty.
that happens. If you're running for political office, that happens, so. Is there any further discussion on that? I'll discuss it with Randy, and maybe we can get somebody to run point on that for us. And then, of course, Commissioner Wainwright, I'd be happy to go down to Brantford.
Anybody's welcome.
The only thing that I had, gentlemen, you guys may be aware that in some of the legislation that's going through there, that there's some amendments, I call them amendments, that they're calling a repeal of parts of the law with regard to open carry and concealed carry on college campuses, and then, of course, there's a separate thing on open carry. And as I read through the law, it says that in these judicial annexes and courthouses where we meet at, and many county commissions meet here, that the judges are allowed to conceal carry. But if you go down a little ways, it does not make an allowance for constitutional officers or members of the local governing body to do so. So I called up to the Florida Association of Counties and asked them about it, and they said, well, this was in jest, so I don't want to say this was fact, but the lady I spoke to said that, well, that was put in there to prevent commissioners from shooting each other. So I said, well, that may or may not be the case, but I said, your point is taken, though, that if there was a particular commissioner that did not like another commissioner who knew that he carried into it, that they could call the sheriff on that particular commissioner and have him hauled off in handcuffs. So that could happen, but just not in that manner of shooting another one. So I asked them if they could perhaps do some lobbying on our behalf to allow us to carry concealed into the courthouse or to the judicial annex, because this is an extension of the courthouse. And I also called the senator supporting the bill, and then also the congressional member that's supporting the bill, and expressed my concern there too. I don't know if it'll get any traction, but I was hoping maybe the board would allow staff to draft some sort of letter to offer that as an amendment to the law while we're in that particular mode at this time, to allow us and constitutional officers to conceal carry into these meetings. And I addressed this, I gave an example of several years ago, about 3 years ago, there was a man who came into a school board meeting and opened fire here. I believe it was in our state.
Panhandle area, I believe.
Yeah,
Pensacola.
and Pensacola area. And those people were vulnerable. They had no way of defending themselves. And also, you too as a public can definitely not carry in here, so there's no way for you to defend yourself.
Well, I sit by the door.
Right, well, that is a good seat now.
It's every man for himself.
That's right. But anyway, so I don't know what you guys' feeling is on that, but I would just like to have staff develop a letter in support of allowing constitutional officers and elected officials to carry into the courthouse and the judicial annex.
with that.
Okay.
I'm
okay with that?
good with it, because if we go through the effort to have a permit for concealed carry.
Yes, you have to have a permit.
Exactly, and I do.
I do as well.
Permit, and so, I mean, I think if you go through those efforts to do that, then I think you should be able, or afforded the opportunity to do just that.
Okay. Mr. Harris? Okay, thank you. Mr. Gamble?
I was just going to mention the same thing Commissioner Session did about the Veteran Days Parade, 9 o'clock, November 11th.
There's also a thing November 10th, Ellis told me, Mr. Gray told me about, if anybody would call him, he'll give you the particulars. I believe it's at lunchtime, if memory serves right. That if anybody wants to participate in that, give him a call and find out what that is. Commissioner Wainwright?
I'm going to have to ask Debbie. I was down in Brantford this morning, and don't we put the flags up for? Okay. Just a reminder, they do it twice a year. Veterans Day and Memorial Day. Thank you. And that is it's an awesome sight. Go down to Brantford, just all the streets, 129, 247, 20, and 27 parts of it, just lined with memorial crosses and flags. It's a great sign.
What's the gentleman's name that does that? We'll give him some
Help
recognition.
me out with that. Robert Brado, thank you.
Mr. Robert Brado does a fine job, and I hope that that continues on into the future. So it's a beautiful, beautiful site.
It really is.
All right, item number 21, any informational items that we need to consider here this evening?
You already did.
All right. Thank you. I only need one thing, gentlemen.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Sessions, seconded by Commissioner Gamble. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
See you next time. Y'all drive safe.